The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is Sandy. I am so excited because it is Project SmartSprout quarterly grant time again. Our deadline is coming up next Monday, December 10th, and I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on the grant application and give you some tips on applying for the grant from our organization this month. So let's just jump in and get started. The first thing that you need to know is where to find the grant application, and it's pretty simple. You can go to growingforgoodgrant.com. That will take you to the page that looks like this, where it says Project SmartSprout Grant Application. And so what I want to do today is walk you through some of these questions and give you some ideas of what we're looking for. As we have used this as a learning opportunity, we figured that we want this to be educational for you. We want this to be a safe space for you to practice applying for a grant, especially those of you who've not really done this before. And it's been an amazing learning opportunity for us. So we thought, you know what? We realized that even though there's only a handful of questions on this application, that some of you may be struggling with that. And as we look at the applications that have come in this year, we can see where some folks have kind of gotten off track with it. So here we are, and I'm going to walk you through. We're also going to fill out a fictitious grant application today. Now, one of the things I want to show you is that I have a Word document that I have written the questions. So you see here where it says, describe the project, how will your project impact the mission? Those are the actual questions from the grant application. And we've gone through and created this organization, created this project, and I've done the whole thing in Word. Now, I've heard from a couple of people that the little boxes on the application are so small, and yes, they are. So I recommend you do this in Word, and this is exactly how we've done it, because then you can edit, you can print it, sleep on it, mark it up, whatever you need to do, so that you can make sure you've got the best application that you can possibly have. Now, you'll see this is actually only about one page. It's not terribly long, and the made-up organization is the ABC Food Pantry. Now, as we go through this, if you want, you can hit the pause button and zoom in a little bit and read this if you want. I'm also happy to post this fictitious grant in the Facebook group if you want to have a closer look at it. So you can do that. Let me back up over here for a moment. The big thing that you want to do with this grant application is to think about what you can do for $1,000. Tell us how you're going to be able to use our money to make a difference in a program or in the lives of the people or the animals that you're taking care of. We realize that we tend to gravitate toward projects where we can get the most bang for the buck. Now, not every foundation is going to be that way. Every foundation is different. Every foundation has their own method of evaluating and scoring applications. We have a pretty simple system, actually. We're looking to see if we can understand the project. Does it make sense? Is there an emotional tug? Is it going to have an impact? Do we feel good about investing our money in that organization? Now, I can't think of a single organization in SmartSprout that we wouldn't feel good about. So you've got a leg up there, but you need to make sure that your project or program is well thought out and you've got the details nailed. So don't give us anything vague like we're going to empower cats and dogs to have better relationships. You need to give us way more detail on how exactly that's going to happen and how you're going to measure it and all that sort of thing. We are looking for big impact, not necessarily big numbers, but big impact. We want to know that our donation is making a difference, and I think a lot of funders are like that. We definitely want it to be well thought out. You have to know your project inside and out, upside and down, backwards and forwards, and think about things that might be a little unexpected. And I'll show this when we get to the sample. I've got a couple of things in there that I can show you. Share enough information that we understand what you're trying to do, but be careful not to overshare. Leave out any details that aren't relevant. So if you're trying to tell us about how your program is going to help cats and dogs get along better, don't start talking about guinea pigs, because that doesn't have anything to do with your cats and dogs. Just make sure that you include only the information that we need to know in order to go, wow, that is awesome. We're choosing them, this right here. This is the project. That's your goal. You want to give us enough information that we get it and that we feel really strongly that your project is the one that deserves our grant. It's a fine line between being very thorough and being very brief. And again, one of the reasons that we do this grant is to give you this opportunity to practice how you talk about your program or your project in a way that's really going to motivate us to want to choose your organization. All right, let's look at the application itself. The first section is about your information. If you can't fill this out, I can't help you. It's basic stuff. You can handle that. The next section, where we talk about your organization's info, here we're curious. We want to know if you're growing, frankly, and we do track this information. So if you have filled out the grant form every quarter this year, we are tracking that in our database, and we're looking to see, is it growing? What we would love to be able to say is, based on what you're learning in Project SmartSprout, your donor base is bigger, your budget is bigger. That's what we're hoping at some point to be able to see. Now, here's what you need to know. What you put in this section has no impact on your eligibility to get a grant. So particularly the question that says, how many Project SmartSprout webinars have you attended? If you put a 0 there, it does not impact whether or not we will choose you for the grant. We're just curious. As long as you are paying your membership fees, you are eligible to apply for this grant, and we hope that you will. That section there, that's just for our own curiosity because we're trying to figure out what's working. Let's go down to the good stuff. So basically in our Growing for Good grant, there are 4 questions. This is not a detailed application by any stretch. What I want to do is give you an idea of what to put in each one of these boxes. Now, again, I know some people have said, oh my gosh, the box is so small. That's why I recommend do this in Word and then just copy it over. Okay, let's start with the first one. Describe the project. What should you put here? Here's where we want you to give us an overview of what's going on. You can tell us a little about your nonprofit, tell us real quickly who you are, what your mission is, and what you do, then go right to the project. Tell us about the need or the problem you're trying to address, and that's going to give us a context. Tell us who you serve and how you're going to help them. And if you've got a couple of really awesome, supportive statistics, share those, because that's going to create some understanding on our part about how many need your help, or how many have you served, or how many are on a waiting list. That's going to give us a good context for your grant. If your grant is such that you've got a timeline or some activities, you can put that. I'm going to jump over to our sample here and show you that in the ABC Food Pantry, we have started right off by saying the mission of ABC Food Pantry is to feed hungry people in the Main Street community. So there we go. That's a little bit about the organization. Then we go on to talk about how we do this, and that we estimate in the community there are 856 food insecure families. And then we talk about how many food boxes are being handed out. Now, could we go into a little more detail there about exactly how many per week? Yeah, we probably could. Or talk a little bit more about those families. We could, but we also want to keep it brief. The project itself is called Project Frozen Food. So in essence, this fictitious food pantry wants to buy a really large freezer, a chest freezer, so that they can take advantage of frozen food distributed through their local food bank, because that's going to help them provide more nutritious food to the families that they serve. Now watch this. I'm going to select that. I'm going to press Control-C to copy that. I'm going to go right over here, click in the box. Now I press Control-V, and my whole paragraph is now in there. Now, it doesn't necessarily look real pretty. You can go in there and put the breaks in the paragraphs if you want to. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that on our end. So that gets us question number 1 done. Describe the project. Number 2, how will your project impact your mission? Here's what we want to know here. For this particular project, how is it going to help you fulfill your organization's mission? How will this make a difference in the lives of those you serve? And if you've got some numbers, share them. If you can share with us how many you're serving now, how many more you'll be able to serve with the implementation of this project, we want to know that. Make sure that you tell us here how this project is going to relate and support your mission. That's what we want to know. So in our example, we talk about how that it's very difficult to handle fresh produce because it has a short shelf life. And by having the freezer, we can now distribute frozen vegetables and fruit that's going to be healthier for the families that we serve and help us fulfill our mission. So again, I just selected it, copy, paste, boom, that one's done. Let's go on to the next one. What are your goals with this project? What we want to know here are the 2 or 3 strategies for this project. We want to know, what are you trying to accomplish with the project? Here's where the example is going to be helpful. With our project frozen food, our goals are to, number 1, purchase a chest freezer to store the frozen food until it can be distributed. Number 2 is to provide 50 families a week with frozen food. You see, those are 2 real specific, very clear, very understandable goals. And number 3, we want to serve 41,600 families over the life of the freezer, as we estimate it will function for 16 years. So when I talk about thinking through your project, we in this fictitious organization thought about the size of the chest freezer we need in order to be able to hand out frozen fruit and vegetables to 50 families a week. So we chose the size of the chest freezer that would allow us to do that. And then we were able to find this website called MrAppliance.com that showed us how long that's going to function. And we just did the math. So here's where we're able to say, over the life of this freezer, we're going to serve 41,600 families. See how that works? That's pretty simple. We've got 3 real specific, very clear goals that I'm now going to paste in that box. Now, if your project is a little different, this project has a piece of equipment, and that's, you can estimate a piece of equipment, the lifespan of it, and that's pretty easy. If your project is, it's a program, maybe you want to expand a program, you want to add a program, there's something else that you want to do that's much more service delivery oriented, then you still want to relate that back to your mission. Talk to us about how adding that program is going to help you serve more people or serve them in a better way. It's either quantity or it's quality. So talk to us about how it's just going to help you make a bigger impact. Remember, for us, for this grant, we're looking for impact. That's what's most important to us. Then the last question is provide details on how the money will be spent. You want to be specific here. You want to tell us exactly how the money is going to be spent. Don't say, oh, well, we're going to take the $1,000 and we're going to buy, if I go back to my helping cats and dogs get along example, we're going to buy enrichment toys for all the dogs and cats so they'll just be in a happier mood. That's really vague. That doesn't tell us how many toys you're going to buy, exactly what those are going to cost, how many dogs and cats are going to be able to enjoy them. So you want to be specific here. Tell us what's going to happen, and then double check your math. Make sure the math works, because I will guarantee you that we have a person or 2 on our team they're going to double check your math. And if the numbers don't add up, that does not instill trust in us to want to give you the grant. And I'll tell you that works for other funders as well. If the $1,000 doesn't cover the project, tell us where the rest of the money is going to come from. Break it down into some cost components if you can. So let me show you here what we have in our fictitious organization. We have chosen a 22 cubic foot freezer, and actually that is a real number. I went on bestbuy.com. I found exactly this specific Whirlpool chest freezer. It is $809.99. We'll be able to get it tax-free since we're nonprofit, and we've negotiated delivery. So that we've got $809.99. That gets us the freezer. But here's where you have to think through the project. We assume that in our fictitious organization that the pantry is located in an old church, and we're going to have to install a new electrical outlet in order for us to safely operate the freezer. That's a very real thing. And so we have an electrician who's going to donate the parts, but we need to pay $175 for labor. So the $175 goes into our budget. We have $809.99 for the freezer, $175 for the electrician. We're also going to need a couple of giant coolers that we can take with us when we go to the food bank to bring the frozen food back. They're $65 each, totaling $130. When you add those 3 numbers up, it is $1114.99. Now that goes over the $1,000 grant, and what we've added in the sentence that goes to the second page is that one of our dedicated volunteers has offered to donate $115 to complete the project if we get the grant. That's what we want to know. We want to know exactly what do you need in order to make this project work, to put it all into play. And if you have money left over, and then we've seen applications like this where they're only going to spend, let's say, $975. What are you going to do with the extra 25? Find a way to make it fit. Like in this case, with the chest freezer, we said, you know what? We're going to need coolers. We're going to need some of those big Coleman coolers to get that stuff back from the food bank so it stays frozen until we get it in our freezer. That's a legitimate expense. That's an extra $130 that we need to spend. Make sure that you have thought through all those sort of things too. All right, let me copy, and we'll go right over here and paste this in, and look at that. There's our 4 questions. We've got it all done. All I have to do now is click on the Submit My Application button, and we're done. All done. So you can do this too. You do have to think through your project. I recommend that you do this in Word, just like I showed you with the example, so that you can make any edits. If you have a link to something, like you can quote that source like we did with MrAppliance.com, which is kind of funny. That's a real site. And it'll tell you how long certain appliances are going to last, which is really funny. You can find almost anything on the internet. So here's the deal. The 4th quarter grant deadline is December 10th. That's next Monday at midnight Eastern. Frankly, submit it before you go to bed. It'll be fine. We only have a couple of people who have submitted applications so far this quarter, so you've got a really good shot at being selected. Your odds are good. I do hope that you'll take time out of your busy holiday season to think through a project, apply for this grant, and use this as an educational opportunity for you to really think about what you want to do, to be strategic in your request, to learn to be brief and thorough at the same time. And the nice part about it is if you have a question, you can drop it in the Facebook group and one of us will come along and answer. We want you to get this. We want you to use this opportunity to learn how to do this so that every time you go out and apply for a grant, you've got a really good shot at getting it. That's really our intention here, is for you to sharpen and hone your skills. Then when you go out into the world and you're asking other foundations for money, your success rate is really high. That's what we're looking for. And these skills are going to serve you in all of the fundraising you do. So no matter where you're raising money, if you can talk in detail about your programs, your project, equipment that you need, whatever it is, when you can speak in more detail, your chances of getting funded just went up significantly. All right, so that's it. The deadline is December 10th. The link is growingforgoodgrant.com. Ask any questions you want in the Facebook group. We'd be happy to help you. Best of luck. I hope you win. Holler if you need us. Have a great rest of your day. See you. Bye, everybody.